All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to now get into talking about the Texans and their win over the Dolphins. And also, I wanted to talk about the injury of Grant DuBose, the wide receiver for the Dolphins. And there's a positive update regarding him. So, yeah, he got sent to the hospital, of course, after the helmet to helmet collision during the game, and that required a stoppage in the game because I didn't see it happen live because I was following on the fantasy app and I saw that the game was delayed and I was confused by that. And then when I saw in Red Zone what had happened, then it made sense. But as of a couple days ago, well, this is on December 16th. So yeah, he has movement in all extremities, and initial tests have revealed positive results. He remains under the care of doctors for continued observation. I was trying to see if there were any more updates with that, but at least the news is positive because it was a scary, scary situation, and so yeah, just hoping that he's back, and everything's okay there. I mean, the Dolphins did put him on, I think, season-ending IR. So, but yeah, just a scary situation there, and hoping for the best for him. But at least we got some positive news there. But yeah, it's a scary situation. We see this, a lot in the NFL. It's a dangerous sport, and when something like this happens, you realize these guys aren't immortal. They're human beings, and this was another case of that on Sunday. But yeah, no, it seems like there's positive news on that front, and wishing him a speedy recovery. So, but with the game though, I mean the Dolphins, they have to win out, and they really could not get anything going offensively. Tua Tagovailoa struggled in this game, under 200 yards passing. He had 3 picks in this game. Derek Stingley, 2 interceptions. He had the game-sealing pick at the end. I mean, the Dolphins had a chance to go down the field and tie it, but that didn't happen. They really couldn't run the ball on Sunday. Their leading receiver ended up being Malik Washington. Tyreek Hill, 2 receptions for 36 yards. Jalen Waddle actually got hurt in this game. He only had 2 targets, didn't have a catch. Jonnu Smith had their only touchdown. He continues to produce for them. The Dolphins' defense had 4 sacks. They played well. They kept them in the game. And, C.J.Stroud, yeah, he only had 131 passing yards. He had 2 touchdowns, and they were both to Nico Collins, who only had 4 receptions for 17 yards. But the Texans really couldn't run the ball either. 77 yards on the ground. Joe Mixon only had 23 yards rushing, and he was their leading receiver. He had 33 yards receiving. The Dolphins punted on their first possession. The Texans, they scored on their first possession. A Kymie Fairbairn 44-yard field goal. Later in the first quarter, Jason Sanders, he kicked a 55-yarder. Then the Dolphins fumbled in the second quarter, and that led to a Texans touchdown. That was to Nico Collins. And then the Dolphins kicked a field goal. Then the Texans fumbled. They fumbled at around midfield, but Tua immediately threw a pick after that. And the Texans turned that into 3 points. So it was 13-6 at the half. Then it was 20-6. This was Nico Collins' second touchdown. And then we had the Jonnu Smith touchdown to respond to that. And I think they actually... did the Dolphins go for 2? They missed the extra point. They missed the extra point. And then the Texans punted, and then Tua threw another pick. Yeah, they got down to the Houston 20, but then Tua was trying to hit Tyreek Hill, and he got intercepted by Stingley the first time. And then a lot of 3 punts in the fourth quarter. Tua then threw a pick on the Dolphins' final possession, and the Texans ran it down. So the Dolphins are now 6-8. And yeah, they're not making the playoffs. They're not. They would need a lot of things to go right for them. It's not going to happen. And Tua, for the most part, since he's come back, has played well. He did not play well in this game. And, you kind of look at the games that they won since he came back. They beat the Cardinals. Well, actually, no, they lost to the Cardinals. They lost to the Cardinals by a point. They lost to the Bills. They beat the Rams. But you look at the teams that they beat, other than the Rams. They beat the Raiders. Not a good football team. They beat the Patriots. Not a good football team. And they beat the Jets, who aren't a good football team. And they had to go into overtime with the Jets. And the teams that they lost to, Cardinals are fighting for a playoff spot. The Bills are one of the best teams in the NFL. The Packers are playing really well. And then you got the Texans, who are going to be AFC South champions. This is what we're talking about, though, with the Dolphins, is against these better teams, they just don't rise up. And Tua had some interesting comments at the end of the game, because he talked about, players, planning their trips in season while, the season is still going on. And he said, that really shows that really shows some players' true colors and how they, what their, where their state of mind is at the moment. I got to look up what he said. I got to find the direct quote for it. But yeah, I mean, look, the Dolphins, they started playing better when Tua came back. But, against some of these teams, these better teams, like, you got to beat them. Now, the Bills game, that came down to a game-winning field goal. But against the Packers, you really were never in it. Texans, I mean, it was a close game, but, Tua threw 3 picks. You can't have that happen. But next year, they're going to run it back. And I did play with the idea of, well, Tua got hurt. Now he came back late. Maybe the Dolphins will put together a late run, to maybe make the playoffs. But it's not going to happen. I think this was it. I'm trying to see. No, he was just, Tua said at the end of the game, plain and simple, just my fault. I got to protect the ball. I got to play better ball for our guys, especially in a situation where the team is counting on me to go and drive our offense down to potentially time the game up, and that's not what I did. That's not how you win games in the league. Very disappointed with how I played today and with how I conducted myself on the field with our guys, with our team. I just need to be better in all aspects with that. But I wanted to find what he said about some of his teammates, because it was interesting what he said. Let me see if I can find it. Oh yeah, so all right. So here it is. This is from 3 days ago. So he said, I can find the quote. He said, "This team loves to play the game. We don't take this game for granted. So for us to say, oh, let's go plan our trip to Cabo or plan our trip to Mexico." You really started to see the guys that want to be in our locker room and want to play for each other. So, yeah. I guess that's what he was trying. Well, yeah, you really start to see the guys that want to be in our locker room and want to play for each other. I mean, yeah, if he was trying to say, like, guys are, thinking about planning trips already when the season's not over yet, yeah, you see players' true colors. Now they kind of just gave up on the season. If that is what he's trying to say, that's how it came across. But yeah, no, the Dolphins. It was a disappointing year. I mean, had Tua not gotten hurt, I mean, they definitely would be in the playoff conversation. But it's just he came back, and the Dolphins had to be perfect in this final stretch of games to make the playoffs, and it's just not going to happen. So they're going to run it back next year. If Tua stays healthy the whole year, I expect them to be in the mix for the playoffs. But, yeah, no, it's just – I mean, they need a lot of things to go right for them to make it. They need to win out, and then they need a ton of help, which I don't think they're going to get it. So, yeah, no, disappointing season for them. For the Texans, C.J.Stroud still doesn't look great. Now Joe Mixon's been having trouble running the football recently, so, that hurts them. But you know what? This defense is still good. So I think this team is still dangerous come playoff time. But they got to start showing it. You got the division. You're going to host a playoff game, but it's going to be against a tough opponent. You could be playing against the Ravens in the first round, or the Steelers, or the Chargers or the Broncos. One of those. That's going to be a tough game. So, but at least like in the first round they'll have it at home. But if this team is going to have to go on the road, and we saw what happened last year when they played the Ravens on the road in the playoffs, they got blown out. And I kind of expect the same thing the way they've been. I still think they're a good team, but I don't think they're in that championship tier. I don't even think they're in the second tier. I think they're in, the third tier. If you were to rank the playoff teams right now. Because they've been disappointing. I did expect more from them. I mean, the Stephon Diggs injury, I think, hurt them because he was playing well for them. And if you had him with Nico Collins and Tank Dell, I mean, that's, it's one of the best trios in the NFL. But, now they're down to just Nico Collins and Tank Dell. And Nico Collins has looked good since he's come back. But you got to get this running game going again, and you got to hope that C.J.Stroud, steps up his game. So, yeah, no, but the Texans, they got the win. They're AFC South champs, or they're going to be AFC South champs. They're not blowing this lead. So yeah, no, we'll see what happens. Yeah, no, they are AFC South champs. They did officially clinch. And we got S Coleman 825 in the chat. He says, "Do you think Penix will be a shoo-in for the QB?" Well, I mean, he is starting, so. Yeah, I mean, let's see how he does these final 3 games here. And he had time to sit behind Kirk Cousins, which I think definitely helped him out. So, and you got the Giants as your first game, which I think he should play well in. But we'll have to wait and see. But, yeah, let me know what you guys think, though, about this game, the Texans-Dolphins game. Like I said, disappointing season for the Dolphins. But, a lot of it had to do with Tua getting hurt. And how would this season have played out had he not gotten hurt? They definitely would have won a few more games, and they'd be in a good position right now. But unfortunately, he got hurt, and, you had to basically win out. And you went against some tough teams, and you couldn't get it done. Against the Bills, against the Packers, against the Texans, those 3 teams are making the playoffs. And the Dolphins went 0-3 against them. And then you also lost to the Cardinals, too, which I think I don't know how they lost that game, but they did. And the Cardinals aren't a bad team, but, I think the Dolphins should have beat them. But, yeah, no, we'll see what happens, and we'll see, if C.J.Stroud and that offense can turn it up. These final 3 weeks, they got a tough game on Saturday against the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes could play. He was a full participant in practice. So maybe he does play. We'll have to keep an eye on it when we preview that game on Friday. But, yeah, no, the Texans, they are AFC South champs once again. And we'll see if they can maybe try to improve their seeding, these final few weeks. But I think they're going to be locked into the 4 when it's all said and done. So we're going to take our next break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the Giants. We'll talk about the Ravens winning 35-14 over them, and revisit that conversation on should Brian Dable and Joe Schoen be back. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.